This word mindfulness is quite interesting, and sometimes I wonder, as long as mind is full, it cannot be mindful. So it is about like emptying of the mind. So it's the word itself can be paradoxical that when the mind is silent, empty, then there is a possibility of that attention, or you can call sensitivity, or being really mindful. And can we say that looking at whatever is as it is, without any distortion, just connecting to what is, without even this desire to change what is truly mindfulness or attention?
I would say it is in the authentic sense, yes. Um, it depends on how you interpret mindfulness. It's not that the mind needs to be full. Mindfulness, I think, is just a translation into English, which is not very, can be, as you say, paradoxical and not very helpful. It's not that we want to make our mind full of ideas or of stuff. Mindfulness, in its authentic translation, if you like, I think would be more like being awake. And indeed, in the translation in Hebrew, it would be called wakefulness. It's waking up. And waking up is to waking up to what is. So mindfulness is, in a way, it's instead of functioning on automatic pilot.
Yes.
It's a sense of presence and much closer to what Krishnamurti calls uh, observation itself, beyond the observer and the observed.
Yes.
It's about waking up to what is in this moment. So I agree with you, mindfulness, it's not really helpful, that word. I prefer, and it's not even the correct translation of the original Pali language. Original Pali language of sati, the original word for mindfulness, tends to be more wakefulness. It tends to be more uh, in a not in a forgetting mode, which is just functioning on automatic when we're not even aware of what's happening around us.
Yes. It is so beautifully you have described that it is waking up to what is, waking up to the ignorance, to the illusions that mind carries, waking up to, our suffering as it is, and waking up to the stories that mind, gathers and lives on that. And so it's a continuous learning and unlearning process. And can we say that it is pure observation without any motive, without any direction?
Yes, we can do, although I think there is something in the Buddhist tradition and the Buddhist teaching which is important, which is sometimes we do need a direction. And I mean, some very, very basic directions, I think, can be quite helpful. For example, let's say that our mind and our heart in the days of the virus, the coronavirus, and change and threat, um, anxiety, shall we say, our heart can be full of anxiety. What is it that reminds us to shift the heart to love? Something can remind us to shift the heart from love. That's a positive direction. It's not directionless. So I don't quite go along with the sense that we need to be without any direction or without any idea of development of capacities and qualities that help our spiritual life. We are not just a leaf on the water. I think we can, if it's done lightly and with awareness, we can say, wait a minute, I can change direction now.
Yes.
There's something here that's beneficial for me and the world if I make a shift in a negative place, for example, moving from anxiety to well-being, moving from anxiety to care for my neighbors, for myself, and for others. And this sometimes needs effort, or it sometimes needs a clear direction.
Yes, this observation or listening or attention itself is an action, because life naturally demands the ending of suffering. Like even the body, when it gets sick, it wants to be healed. So similarly, when we are suffering psychologically because of anxieties, because of our worries, so when there is a looking, a deep observation, in that deep observation, there is something, happening. It's a creative uh, process, and it naturally dissolves what is being looked, even without, our wishing. Because what happens when we get occupied with wishing that for that suffering to end or that worry to end, then we add more suffering or more worry to that, with that wishing. So this pure, simple, innocent looking itself becomes a process of negation, if I can say, negation of what is.
Yeah, I understand. And I think it's more the negation of the obstructions and the obstacles and the stories. It's not negating our humanness, it's negating the way we are stuck inside stories and belief systems and a self and and our views and opinions and our knowledge and so on. It's negating the belief that we have in in forms,
Yes.
should we say, mental forms. But let's look at the healing in the body just for a moment. I think that's an interesting example. If you say the body has its own healing power, it's a very natural power for us to be healthy and heal. It's flowing in us. How do we support that? And certainly one of the ways we can support that is to meet it, is actually to go into our bodily life through awareness, through interest, with an atmosphere of curiosity and awareness, and actually meet the life force in us and give it support by just joining it. And it's an example of going under the surface, touching deeper places, and this itself gives support to the depth, or to the powers in us. And in that sense, you're right. We don't have to say, I want to now fix myself. uh, I but when we meet our deepest sources of life itself, they are supported, and and they will be encouraged, and they will help us. I remember one time I had a student, and I teach often with one-to-ones, and it's one of the shortest interviews I ever had with one of my students in a meditation retreat. And the student came to me, and he had tears in his eyes. He's a young guy, maybe 23. And he said to me, I realize now that there's nothing that needs to be fixed. And it was such a beautiful statement. And then he cried, and I was so touched, I cried. And we cried together. It's just so beautiful. There is nothing that needs to be fixed.
Yes, it is so beautiful. It is like just allowing that transformation to happen, and which is happening all the time, but we become block by believing in our, so-called efforts, and yeah, trying to control things. But once we realize that this controller, this
Yeah,
observer, with all its knowledge and attachments, it itself is a, source of suffering, then it becomes quiet. And I feel that silence allows that healing to happen naturally. And then, of course, as you said, support whatever is required for the body, for the mind to take care of itself, that comes with it. Yeah.
completely, completely. There's one thing that I think it'd be good to clarify here, and that is the way um, we use the word mind, because um, it's obviously a big mess, the language here, of meanings and so on. But I would like to just suggest that the mind that is full of self, of content, of struggle, of thought, concepts, and memory, history, we can call it mind, but something happens when we let go of that and we touch a place that's deeper, that's in the waking up place, it's in the awakening place. And I don't think we need to use the word mind for that. So mindfulness can be full of stuff in the mind, but I think that we can move from the word mind into the word awareness, for example, or into the word being, and it helps us to make a distinction here that in the spiritual insights come from a deeper place, not so much in the world of content, which is the packaging of the mind that is carrying something. So the mind is a little bit like pouring the ocean into bottles, shall we say. So there's the ocean, and the ocean is poured into bottles, and the bottles are the content of the mind. But the ocean is much more in the world of, you can use the word awareness. Language here is problematic, of course.
Yes. And I like what Krishnamurti used, the word choiceless awareness. Being just aware of whatever is taking place without taking any side, without any sense of trying to control it. A thought cannot create this choiceless awareness, but there can be a choiceless awareness of the thinking process as it is occupying our inner space. And then thought finds its right place. So it is not that we are against thought or we are against even desires. Everything has its right place. But when it is seen for what it is, with this quality of choiceless awareness, things, including knowledge, finds its right place where it is required. So suffering is generated when things are misplaced, when knowledge is misplaced, and realizing that what knowledge is capable of and what knowledge is not capable of.
Yeah, I think I would go along with that, Mukesh, 100%. And choiceless awareness is actually the truth of things, because we are in illusion that we control, but we don't even control our own thoughts. We can't say, now I'm going to think of this, now I'm going to think of that. Thoughts arise by themselves, and they arise as a big cacophony of noisy children that invading our space. The truth of things is appearances arise by themselves. And therefore, if we want to get close to the truth of things, then choiceless awareness is a way in which we in a way get ourselves out of the way and allow life to just appear in the way it does. And we take a step back from the control, habits of control. What that does is a very important movement to the whole, our whole inner world, because it gives room and space. It gives us space. And we allow appearances to appear as they do, and we will find that in that place we meet perfection. We meet perfection because there's nothing wrong in the way just appearances appear and disappear again. It happens in the moment. It happens with awareness.
Yeah.
But if we take away the illusion of the controller and control, then we are just, in a way, deeply in touch with life as it is, rather than our filter, like the life. We take away the filter. Life just arises as it is, and we'll find perfection in that.
Yes.
And what you said is also, I think, very right, that that puts thought in perspective. And all the forms that we have inside, the thought, the memories, the choices, the history, the biography, and even the old psychological issues, pains, and difficulties, they begin to take a back seat. They become less dominant, less controlling. They're not needed so much. Instead of that, we're facing the mystery of the now. And so the thought becomes more functional. It takes less room
Yeah, it has
because
no
the
longer.
now is expressing itself. It's expressing itself so strongly and clearly in this moment. Like you and I are talking together. You're in India. I'm in Israel under a tree. But we share, never mind it's through a computer. That's just a medium. It doesn't matter. But we share this moment as tangible, as total, as a moment of being, beingness together. And
Absolutely. And in this moment, in this now, how can, suffering exist? How can any anxiety exist? Because suffering, anxiety, fear, they exist only in the time, either in the past or future. And when the mind is totally identified with those stories and anxieties, then it is mistakenly, seeking its identity through all that stuff. And once we look deeply within in this moment, we can see that, there is no suffering. In this moment, in this now, there is no suffering. And that is so beautiful, and to realize. And I feel this looking in this now is also deep love, or you can call it compassion. And it seems so simple. I don't know why we keep missing it. This whole journey is so simple, but our minds are so complicated. We look for a very complicated path to go around and round and round, and then come back to where we started. And the key is in the now. Just look within in this moment.